All right, guys, this is Norfolk Central coming back at you with another YouTube video. And I know that I talked a lot about the Cheez It Bowl victory that Florida State had against Oklahoma. Thought I'd change it up a little bit with some of my video ideas and everything. I wanted to bring up this because Florida State is bringing back about 8 offensive starters. And I know that it's going to be a very, very pivotal year for Florida State in their offensive scheme. When you look at the starters that are going to be without next year because they're exceeding their eligibility, Dylan Gibbons, Demetri Emmanuel, and Cam McDonald. Cam McDonald is kind of who I want to focus on in this aspect with everything going on. You know, you're trying to replace him, and you got guys like Jaheim Bell from South Carolina. You got Kyle Morlock from Shorter that you're bringing in, those 2 transfers. But everyone kind of forgets about another member of the tight end room that not a lot of people are talking about, and that's Markeston Douglas, Biscuit, as they want to call him. And this is a situation where everybody kind of gave up on Markeston Douglas. He was 289 pounds at one point. You really didn't know if he was going to go to the offensive line or if he was just going to be medically disqualified. What was going to be the case with Markeston Douglas? You know, they brought in a couple of tight ends. People used to think, okay, tight ends. Why is Mike Norvell bringing in 6, 7 tight ends in the room and just trying to see what sticks? But Markeston Douglas has surprisingly been very well this season. He's got 14 receptions for 190 yards and 2 touchdowns. In the last game against Oklahoma, he had 4 receptions, 50 yards, and also that 17-yard touchdown that he had later on in the game. And I think that's something to really kind of hang your hat on because the last time he played, he didn't really play much against Florida and didn't really record any stats. But in the Louisiana Lafayette game, he did play and had 2 receptions for 27 yards and a touchdown. I think this really brings a good part about him because everybody thought he was just going to be a blocking tight end. Nothing was going to really go well. You know, and he come out of high school as a 3-star prospect out of Brownsville, Tennessee, and you didn't really know what to expect. He was a basketball star, played power forward. You also had him there, and I believe he played another sport as well. I believe he was a wrestler at one point too. But just kind of looking back at it, I mean, the Clemson game, he had 2 receptions for 52 yards. I mean, he's not going to be somebody that wows you, but at the same time, he's going to be a consistent piece in that offense. Now, you got Wyatt Rector that's going to be graduating as well and exceeding his eligibility. He's a big factor on special teams as well as goal line packages. Do you see more along the lines of, you know, Markeston Douglas later on when it comes to just that factor of his game? I mean, maybe so. I mean, this is just a factor of Markeston Douglas trying to figure out his identity as a tight end in this room. And I think that could be really something special. I mean, this is something that Florida State can really hang their hats on in terms of just a skill set. I mean, you don't really have that much on the roster. And when you're trying to figure out everything, I mean, this is just a factor of, you know, will it happen? And I think Florida State has really found itself in a good position with this. When you're looking at Cam McDonald, I mean, he wasn't really utilized later on in the season. I mean, you had that big drop against, you know, Oklahoma in that game. He had 21 receptions for 312 yards, and he only had 1 touchdown. But, you know, it's kind of looking back at some of his game stats. I mean, you know, he didn't really have much there. He didn't have any receptions or any yards against Oklahoma. You know, he had that one pivotal drop that should have been caught. You know, he played and had 2 receptions here against Florida, 1 reception against Louisiana Lafayette, 2 receptions against Syracuse, 1 reception against Miami. But it was that touchdown at the end of the game. But you're looking at it, I mean, you're starting to see Markeston Douglas increasing his playing time as we go along. And, I mean, you also look at Mike Norvell. He talked about in some of his press conferences, Brian Courtney is another guy he's really excited about. You're talking about a guy in Jarrell Powers who he's also excited about. So this tight end room can be really something special. And I wouldn't really think that these 2 tight ends are going to interfere with that. I think these guys are going to have to grow and develop in their own schemes and how they do. But I'm very excited to see how Markeston Douglas kind of develops this offseason. And hopefully he turns into a pivotal offensive point for Florida State. I think you can never have too many offensive weapons. And if Markeston Douglas can step up this season, that would be a massive leap for Florida State as they go to their offense and hopefully going to get that into the top 5 this season. But I hope each and every one of you enjoyed the video. Be sure to give this a like. Biscuit would appreciate that. Subscribe to the channel. And as always, go Noles.